Everyone, welcome to another episode of Coaching and Coffee Talks podcast. Today, I'm super excited to have Kristen Hough, who is a energy healer, to the show. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You know, we did a Zoom kind of what is that called? Not a session kind of. Yeah, with me and like 5 other people. And it was quite astounding, but I realized I don't really know what energy healing is. I think maybe a lot of people think that it's this healing hands thing when you're like, you're like shooting energy from the universe and you're healed. But since then, I've found out it's actually many modalities and different energy healers will use different ones, whatever ones that they are kind of innately have. Is that right?
Yeah, it's also whatever they are kind of drawn to, right? So I work specifically with the emotion code, and I was drawn to that because I have a background in special ed, and the emotion code is very concrete. Like I look at your subconscious, I figure out what's blocking it from being, less depressed, less anxious, and then I release it. So that to me is like very concrete as far as energy healing goes. But there's modalities that, don't use any type of hands-on, any type of subconscious stuff, just kind of looking at the person's energy and moving things through. It depends on, kind of what you resonate with and how good you are with it. The more you open your mind to this type of stuff and the more you do it, the more intuitive you become, because we're all born intuitive. It's just that society kind of knocks that down. So once your subconscious realizes like, oh, okay, like I can actually do this, it opens up many different things. Even though I do the emotion code, I am becoming more and more intuitive and can, see people's energy in different ways.
And the emotion code, this is a specific system that you learned, right? And what can you just describe what that involves?
So it's a book. It starts with a book, the Emotion Code book by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And it talks about how on a daily basis, some days more than other, we're trapping energy in our bodies that's causing blockages and not allowing our minds, our bodies, our brains to flow freely like it should. So his philosophy is that if we can go into the subconscious using energy testing, look at the person's subconscious and using charts, I have lots of charts up here, say like, okay, like we need to decrease depression. What do we need to release? I'm talking to your subconscious using these charts and energy testing to figure out what we can release to help you feel back into balance.
Okay. And when you said that you see people's energy or what was the term you said first? You check their.
So I check their energy. So when I
close, yeah. So what do you see exactly? Is it light you see, or is it a feeling?
Yeah, or more blockages. Like I can see blockages in people. So if I close my eyes, I can usually see, depending on also the other person, if they're very closed off, even in a session, and they've given me permission, obviously, to work on them, it can be hard to kind of use their energy to look at it. But usually I can see, like, I'll look, kind of through their body, and maybe I'll see a chakra that's off, or sometimes I'll see like someone's thyroid looks dark. But that's only through practice. At first, when I started this work, like in the deep lockdown of the pandemic, I wasn't able. I just used energy testing, which is very, you're asking the body for a yes or no answer using an energy testing technique. So for me, I use this. So a yes is a strong answer, and then this is a no. And no matter what, I can't keep my finger up or down. If it's yes, it's like trying to push against a wall. And if it's no, I cannot keep my finger up. So that's me talking to my own subconscious, which you can do. But then during a session, I can connect to someone else's subconscious and talk to.
And so those are, what are those tests called again? It's like kinesiology. Is that kinesiology? Or?
It is. Yeah, it is. Yep. And there's all different ways to do it. This one's my favorite because I have one hand available, but there's all different ways. And the way you can start, everyone can do it. your polarity can't be reversed. So you have to make sure that you're feeling grounded and, you know, kind of your polarity being your north to north, south to south, so that energy is moving through your body. But you can start by doing a sway test where you just stand up and say a positive word like love, and you will feel this very slight forward kind of movement without making yourself go forward. And then if you say something like hate, you'll feel a slight backwards. Now, when you first start doing it, you're in your head. I'm like, am I making myself do this? But then you just, I mean, I probably practiced 300-400 times a day when I started. And then it just becomes second nature. So everyone can teach themselves how to energy test, actually.
And so it's like in the beginning, it was like, oh, here comes mom. She's
oh yeah. And I was
gonna energy
totally. And I did it. I remember right before the pandemic, I went to go see my brother and sister in San Francisco, and I did it the whole time from Boston to San Francisco. And I was like, at the end, I was like, oh my God. But that plane ride, actually, I was like, after that, I was like, oh, I can do this. So yeah, you can teach yourself. And the emotion code book, it teaches you how to use the emotion code. You just need to go through the certification if you want to work on other people, obviously.
Okay.
But there's so many different modalities that you can teach yourself with no money involved besides the cost of the book, really.
Yeah, I remember, I mean, the first time that I heard about kinesiology was this thing of like holding your arm out and playing like heavy metal music, and you can't keep
Yes.
your arm up, but if you play like Mozart, you can keep
Exactly.
it
Yes.
strengthens you. So that was the big thing of like, this is evil, this music.
Yeah. And I have proof that it's evil. I know.
And so you said it's important that someone, so you don't go around like just reading everybody all the time. It's important that they are open to it and that they go through a series of exercises to like kind of let you see them in that way.
Yes. So I would never look at someone's energy without their permission, because it's just not ethical. But in a session, obviously the person's given me permission to work on their subconscious. So yes, I will sit, I'll protect myself, and then I'll kind of look at their energy. And most times I'll be like, oh, that's off. And then I always check it with my energy testing, though. No matter what, I always check, because I actually trust my energy testing but more than like what I see in my head usually.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So and when we did this workshop, like you mentioned this, the reverse polarity. So and you said one of you has reverse polarity. I knew right away I'm reversed. You know, whatever it is, I know. And I did. But then since then I've learned it's very common. It can happen with like too much being in front of a computer or with the phone. Is it the electromagnetic energy that does it?
It is, because our energy is supposed to be using the universe's energy to pull it down. But if it's flipped, then it's like putting a battery in upside down. So yes, anything can flip your polarity. An argument, like getting stressed out, being sick. Some people I've checked as clients, and it looks like their polarity has been reversed most of their life. Or it reverts back to being reversed. Sometimes you can fix it, and then I'll check it again and be like, oof, your polarity is reversed again. And I think it's because it's kind of used to being reversed. So reverse polarity usually means like, you know, I can tell immediately if someone's polarity is reversed, even if it's a friend, because it'll be like, oh my God, like I was in traffic and then I was 5 minutes late for the meeting, and then I went to pick up the kids and this one's sick. And I'm like, whoa, you got to come down. And it's usually like and my kids too, like I can tell, because it's like this almost like magnet to like the negative, and everything's going wrong. You know, you're almost like, and then you're almost attracting everything going wrong. So sometimes just flipping your polarity can be like a life changer for people. And the easiest way to do it without doing any type of, I'm not a big like meditator and affirmation person. I just am not. I like easy things that I can kind of incorporate through the day. Taking a stainless steel spoon, I learned this from Donna Eden, who's an energy medicine like guru.
Yeah, I did that too. I did that one too.
So if you take a stainless steel spoon and spoon literally the bottoms of your feet, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything besides that. And most times it will flip your polarity and ground you. So a lot of people do that at night, so they feel grounded going to bed. But if you have that feeling of like, ugh, like everything just is not working in my favor, or I'm annoyed at everyone, or like things are just not feeling good, there's a good chance your polarity is reversed.
Yeah. And so let's go a little bit into how you got into this in the first place. You just mentioned quickly that it was during the pandemic, which I find really interesting, is I've talked to a lot of people who had a real paradigm shift in their lives during that time, and they kind of took a time out and to reassess what this all means. You know?
It's kind of crazy. I have also heard of a lot of people that have like completely changed their career or realized they could do something that they didn't know before. And of course, it went both ways. I think some people went down deep. But yes, I do think that time period was very interesting to kind of like go inward, right? And realize some things, good or bad. So I got into it going through the certification right before the pandemic started. Like I was learning to muscle test like March 12th. But before that, I was a client. So about 6 years ago, I had my wisdom teeth taken out and I got dry sockets, which I've had 4 natural births and emergency gallbladder surgery. And this was the worst pain I've ever had in my life. Like I had to go get a prescription where they would give you one pill, like, 20 miles away, thinking I was going to sell it or something and try to fix the pain. I don't even take Tylenol and it didn't even touch the pain. It was 4 weeks of that, just flat out 4 weeks while I had 5 kids at home. It was very intense. And then the day it started feeling better, I found out that my childhood friend died of a heart attack. So it was like, I was already in such a physical distress. And then this came and it was like, I was like just completely catapulted into like a different world. I mean, I was so out of it. And I really was looking for anything. I remember specifically walking through Whole Foods and like going through the supplement aisle and being like, is there some sort of like sedator here? Like I need to get myself out of my body, basically. So finally, one of my nutritionists that I was going to at the time, she's like, this is emotional. Like you're doing everything I'm telling you to do to help like fix yourself and it's not working. You need to read the emotion code book. And I remember being like, all right, whatever. And I got it and I had jury duty and I was there for the entire 9 hours. So I read the entire book and I started muscle testing that day, trying to figure it out. And I remember being extremely skeptical of it because the only time I've ever had any type of energy done was when I was a teacher. One of the teachers did Reiki on me when I was pregnant and immediately I felt sick and I was like, no, stop. So that's the only thing I knew about energy healing at all. And I remember reading the book and being like, okay, this book's been out for 20 years. I've never heard of it. Like, how could this possibly be true? But I was like, it's either that or get on a prescription. And I really didn't want to do that. So I read it, found a person to go to. And I remember going the first time and being like, all right, like what she's saying is making a lot of sense. The emotions, the energy she's pulling up, like makes a lot of sense. And then by the third time, I went 3 times. I was like, oh my God, like I'm releasing I had all this like guilt and shame around my friend Mike's death because I let that relationship go because as you get older, you have kids and you grow apart. He lived in a different state and it was just like a lot of like, like a lot of regret. So by the time three sessions went by, I remember my husband saying, did you get on medicine? And I was like, no. And I was hesitant to tell him because at that point, like he knew nothing either. And I told him, he's like, my God, he's like, we should have one of my sons do it. And he was like, so open to it. So then I started being like, okay, like I could probably get certified in this. Not to do as a job. I had no interest in doing as a job, more to help my kids. And then when the pandemic hit and I was bored and had nothing to do, when you go through your certification, you need to work on like 20 people. And I ended up working on 20 completely random people, through Zoom or a phone call. And after that, I was like, I'm going to do this as a job. And that's how I got into it, which is interesting. I do think my friend Mike, the one who had died, was pushing me into it a little bit, like from above. And I mean, for those who believe in angels and signs, like the amount of times he kind of like put the emotion code in front of my face.
Mm.
I was like, all right, Mike, like in real life, you'd have been like, Kristen, you're out of your mind. But apparently as an angel, he's like, yeah, no, you need to do this. So it evolved quickly, actually. I remember coming up with a name, Open Hearted, and my husband's like, I don't know about Open Hearted. Like it's really supposed to be 2 words. I was like, yeah, Open Hearted, 1 word. That's the name of it.
Mm.
And things just kind of flowed like that. And it kind of evolved into a pretty full-time business now.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting. Well, as I told you, and as most everybody knows that will see this, that I had a heart attack myself, near fatal heart attack. And it was interesting to me because it kind of sounds a similar, correct me if I'm wrong, because I was so depleted after that. I had like no energy. Of course, they give you a bunch, I think it was 5 different medications. There's like the standard, they give it to anyone, whether we're a couch potato or a competitive athlete, you get all the same medicine that just like, lowers your blood pressure, calms you down, turns you into a zombie, pretty much is what it did to me. And I had so little energy. I was napping 3 or 4 times a day. But it was interesting being in that like state of like depressed state, like you also described. I could still work on music. Like that still gave me energy. You know what I mean? And it was like the only thing. Actually, that's not true. I could do this stuff too. I could do like podcasts and write blogs and the coaching and coffee talks. We have a blog as well. Oh yeah, that you were featured in, of course, a couple of weeks ago. And that stuff just gave me energy. You know what I mean? So it actually was like very valuable to experience myself with so little energy and realize that these are the things. It's like was very clear that these are the things I should be doing, even though I'm not making any money on it. But these are the things that I was made to do because they're giving me energy.
yes, I completely agree with that. It's like a life force energy where you're like, oh, I'm supposed to do this.
Yeah, yeah. But it's quite interesting because it's that flip of like, I think you talk something about this too, of like when there's this a problem, to try to, instead of saying like this is a disaster, like just look at it as an opportunity, like this is an opportunity for something. And so that was like, oh, this is this opportunity to really see so clearly what is giving me energy, and also to clearly see how much love is around me. That's what I experienced at that time, because it's like I always tell you, like if you have a heart attack, yeah, people send a card, something like that. But if you flatline for a decent amount of time,
You bring
it's
your
like
cat.
it's like going to your own funeral. You really score. But the outpouring of love, it was like, whoa, okay, I'm not alone on this rock. So it was, yeah, that was really cool.
I also
Um,
think our lives go at such a speed when something like that, I mean, that's intense, but even something that brings you back down a little bit and you have the time to like actually like sort through your thoughts, a lot
yeah,
can come
yeah,
out, but because like a lot of us are so addicted to that
mm,
adrenal cortisol like rush that no one is like being like, dude, like this is it for you.
mm,
This is it. This is the only life you get. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think like taking that time to bring it down a notch can be
Mm,
hopeful.
yeah, it was interesting because I felt like you were doing that a bit in the Zoom, um, session that we had. Does it take a while to just settle people down out of the kind of ADHD world that we live in?
Yes, yes, it is. Because if you think of it, like I mean, I come to work like I'm protected, like I've done my Donna Eden stuff, I've had water, like I'm ready to go because
Yeah.
they're paying me. But some will come in on and be like, oh my God, like I was just dropping off the kids. I'm like, okay, let's take a breath. So they get used to it, right? Like
Mm,
they can sit down and come to me. I mean, my big thing is number one, trying to normalize energy healing, but number two, like come as you are. Like I've had people
mm,
like sick in bed or like who just wake up or like have a baby in their hand. I don't care how they show up as long as they show up. And just by doing like, really simple things like breathing is a easy, quick way of just resetting your
Mm,
nervous system.
yeah.
So the more you get used to it, and the more you kind of, I mean, I have to do it. I have to have my nervous system pretty in check for this
Mm,
job. I just
yeah.
absorb. When I first started this, I felt like I had the flu 90% of the time because I
Wow.
didn't know
Okay.
how to. One thing the book does not teach you is how to protect your energy. So I
Okay.
would be releasing things and get off and be like, oh my God, like I
Mm,
think I'm sick. And I wasn't. I was just taking in all their energy. So thankfully that
mm.
doesn't happen. But
Yeah, because
yeah,
you said that we might feel a little something like that after, because I did feel totally wiped out after the
it
session.
happens.
Of course, I
Yeah.
was the sickest one there, but
No, you were not. Oh, please. We're all sick in our own minds. Um,
but
no, it usually does because you're kicking up energy and you're moving it out. Your
mm,
subconscious is fine staying in a comfort zone, like totally fine. It doesn't really care if you move forward and grow. So
mm,
when we move something from it can almost be like, whoa, like this feels really intense. Almost like if
mm,
you have a massage and then you're like, God,
yeah,
like that
like the toxins and
same
everything.
type of thing. Yeah, because things are moving out.
Mm. And what are like, can you, I know, of course, you don't want to name clients that you've had, but what are type of clients have you had that were like some energy healing success stories?
So I've worked from in utero little babies to newborns to 83-year-olds and
Wow.
everyone I know. I would say like a huge part of my client base right now is between like 28 and 33, which I love because
Mm,
between 28 and 33, I mean, I had no idea that like my
yeah,
energy was, I didn't even know, so I
no,
love
no.
that because it's like almost like setting them up. Like a lot of them haven't had kids yet. And it's just setting them up for like a more like balanced life going forward.
Mm,
But I work with a lot of trauma, like a lot of significant trauma.
mm,
And sometimes I work with just people wanting to feel better, not wanting to do therapy or doing this in conjunction with therapy, which is always nice.
yeah.
Just to make sure they're kind of like in check. Some people
Mm,
need help figuring out like what they want to do with a career or relationship or feel like they're closed off. Anxiety and depression is a huge, huge one. Physical pain. There's a lot of different types of clients, I would say. I have a lot of kids. I love working with kids. They're easy to move energy because they haven't had much life behind them.
mm,
Although had a lot of trauma behind them, but
mm,
it moves quickly and they're still so open. So if I tell them to do something, they do it and come back to me the next week and say, I did what you told me
mm.
to. So it's a fun job. And I never would have. I have actually most of my clients are from California, even though I live in Boston. I have people from London. I have people from, in the middle of the States, everywhere, really.
Mm.
So it's been fun to meet so many people. I actually didn't realize that I liked people as much as I do until I started this job. I'm looking forward to seeing this person today. It's kind of nice.
Um, and do you ever work on couples together that are
Mhm.
having challenges? Is that successful? Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it usually is because they come together. I mean, I'm not, and they know I'm not a therapist,
Yeah.
but they come together, and a lot of times we will either move out like energetic attachments that are causing an unhealthy
Mm.
balance or an enmeshment or codependency, and then I like
I
to
don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, no, me neither. Um, increase like a connection cord.
Mm,
Like a nice, like I see it as like a golden figure eight core between your hearts. So
mm.
yes, I do work. Sometimes I work on like a mother and a son together, or a couple, which I love doing the couples one. I've done a couple business ones where like people will come to me that like work together and will
Ah.
move their energy and separate it. That's my
Mm,
biggest thing when you're working with more than one person is to neutralize the energy between you and that person,
mm.
whether it's to separate it for good, like a breakup, or to connect it and have a more like flowing relationship.
I think Zoom is going to cut us off in 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Is that enough to do like the daily routine?
Sure. Yeah.
That,
So
yeah.
Donna Eden's stuff is free on YouTube, by the way.
Mm.
So you can look up Donna Eden, and she has exercises for basically everything you could want, so two quick ones that I think are so helpful is one for overwhelm, just putting your
Mm.
hands on your biggest nerve, holding here.
Oh, I
And
forgot about that one. Yeah.
that's a great one. And you
Mm.
can picture someone when they're overwhelmed doing this, right? It's the
Mm.
problem is we don't hold it there. So taking breaths, relaxing your
You
shoulders.
also said you saw a lot of overwhelm with me. So I should
Well,
probably just be like this most of the time.
it does for me. This is one of the most successful ones. Like it just like brings me down.
It also looks
This,
like a life preserver kind of one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You can also choke yourself out.
Yeah.
This is for the amygdala, and
Wait.
it brings your anxiety level down. So it brings
Mm.
the blood that we've lost through that amygdala, that fight, flight, or freeze, brings it back into the forebrain
Mm.
and starts to help you respond instead of react to stress. So
Mm.
if there's like a destructive image going through your head, this would be really helpful to kind of like reduce that emotional charge. And
Mm.
it's good for any type of fear, panic, anything where the amygdala is overshooting itself.
Mm.
But I'll give you a couple couple of the energy routine. So if you look up Donna Eden's daily energy routine on YouTube, I think you said you've been doing it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll
Um,
include a link to that here as
Okay,
well.
perfect. And then I like to do, so a lot of people come to me in like severe overwhelm or trauma. When you're in trauma, it's hard to remember things, right? So we've kind of dumbed down the energy routine, and so we'll do it together. So if you take your fist and thump on your chest, this grounds you. It's good for your immune system. And sometimes you can feel the energy moving down. Okay, so this is the first step. And then the
I'm
next
sorry,
step is,
I hate to interrupt this, but
of course,
because like I told you, I had a lot of CPR and was hit with the big defibrillators 13 times. And so anything here, I almost panicked.
yeah. Okay,
But I think it's good. I mean,
well,
could it be good for me to get used to it?
I mean, I would rather say sign yourself up for an emotion code session and release the emotion, release the emotional charge of it, right?
Yeah.
Because that's triggering. But there's other ways,
I think I better just have a monthly payment that
right?
goes.
Good. Be happy to work with you. This is a different way. This can
Yeah,
ground you too.
yeah.
So try that instead. If you don't want to be triggering yourself, that's for sure.
Mm.
And then the next part would be to move your energy across your body. So oftentimes we're homolateral. If you're depressed, you're homolateral no matter what. So your energy is not
Mm.
crossing.
Okay.
So if you take your hand and go across to your opposite hip and just make
Mm.
X's, this will
Okay.
help move your energy across. The next one I like to do is get the energy off your belt flow. So you put both hands behind your back,
Mm.
across your stomach, and down off your leg. This is good for hormones. It's good for
Okay.
digestion. You have to do the other side too, obviously. And you just keep going. My favorite one is rubbing your hands together and shaking them off. And then you're going to push one hand up to the ceiling and one down to the ground.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot that one.
And do a nice stretch here. You look up to your top hand, hold your breath,
Mhm.
and then breathe out, come down to prayer, and then go up the other side and keep going. And then the last one is to zip your energy up. So starting at your pubic bone and zipping right up to your bottom lip. That helps physically protect you from other people's
Oh, that's right.
energies.
Yeah.
I sometimes will, if someone comes to me and they're like extremely overwhelmed, anxiety, depression, like all of it, I'm like, you need to do John Eden's energy routine for three times a week and then come back to me. And oftentimes they'll say like, geez, that helps a lot. So it's just another way of moving your energy through.
Is it part of the emotion code um uh, kind of philosophy or that all kind of physical ailments or diseases are emotionally based?
Yes. So in the certification, just reading about stress and energy, 70% of what brings us to the doctor is related to stress, and stress is related to trapped emotions.
Mm.
Uh, so yes, all disease in theory starts with emotions. And emotions, we feel an emotion about 90 seconds, right? So we have the chance to process it through or trap it. Because of the way our lives go, and because a lot of us were never taught to deal with our emotions, we
Mm.
trap a lot more than we would if we lived, by ourselves in the woods and were grounded all the time and eating perfectly and all that kind of stuff. But if you don't process through the emotion, it gets trapped, and then it can become a feeling, and then a temperament, and then part of your personality, and then it just continues, right? So these trap balls of emotions, they can be little tiny or big, massive things in any cell of your body. So
Mm.
if you think of like a river flowing, and you think of putting boulders and rocks and little pebbles in it, it would only make sense that at some point that's going to just completely stop the flow of the river and the flow of your body until you
Mm.
can move those little rocks out.
Yeah, and I mean, since I had a heart attack and your friend had a heart attack, it was interesting for me to learn. I told you I was listening to the Donna Eden book, Energy Medicine, and she talks about the actually now can measure this kind of electromagnetic a signature of the heart, that it goes out like, is it 3 meters in each direction or something like that? I can't remember.
I've learned 3 to 4 feet in each
Oh, three to
direction.
four feet. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, which means that you're exuding joy, pain, heartache, love, three to
yeah.
4 feet in each direction, which makes sense. If you walk into a room and it's a high vibration, like fun, connected group, you
Hmm.
can feel that. You can almost feel it in your head. If you walk into a funeral, like
Mm.
immediately you feel like a drop. Even walking into even sometimes like a supermarket, you're like, what's going on in here? It just feels so low, and that is related to the energy we have around us, really around our own, what we're emanating from our bodies.
And I asked you in the session because I thought it was interesting. I mean, is it that literal that I have some block in my like heart energy center that would actually lead to a heart attack? Is it that, could it be that literal or?
I don't think it's that literal. I mean, to be honest, my dad died in October of a heart attack, of heart
Mm.
failure.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
He just was walking and died.
Yeah,
So it wasn't a heart attack, but heart failure. And when I used to work on him, we would only work on his heart chakra
yeah. Mm.
because there was so much stuck there. So in theory, this trapped energy is going to, rear its ugly head in one way or another, whether
Mm.
it's a thyroid condition or a heart condition or anxiety, depression. Like we all have our go-tos, I believe, right? Like, so
Mm.
as energy continues to just build up and build up and build up, it's got to affect us in some way.
Mm.
That's why I love energy healing in conjunction with other things, because it's so broad and there's so many different ways to move blockages out of our energy, that it can be an amazing tool to help you on, your path to health, no matter where
Yeah.
you are on that path. Sometimes people come to me not even drinking like a cup of water, right? And then by the time we're
Mm.
finished, they'll be like, geez, you know what? I do feel better when I drink water. And now I'm drinking water and going out for a walk and I'm eating better. Like things kind of spiral, in a good way,
Mm.
or a bad way. But a lot of times with this type of work, because we're moving enough energy to kind of like come out of that fog and be like, oh, I could be doing a lot more for myself. So it's hard to tell, it's hard to tell like if all that, maybe stuff that has been just building up here is what caused a heart attack. I hope that's not the case, but it does make sense that the more you can move out of here, the more your
The
energy would
better. Yeah.
and the healthier your heart would be.
Um, because also I thought it was interesting in this Donna Eden book. I was wondering if you had an experience like this where she actually talks about, I don't know what exactly it was, or if she saw it in someone's energy field or something, where she actually diagnosed what, I shouldn't say she diagnosed, but she saw a medical problem before a doctor even diagnosed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So she is like, she's a phenomenon. Like she can see, like when she's talking to someone, she can see all of their energy. She can see how it flows. She can see where it's blocked. She can see the colors of the aura, the colors of the chakras. So she's like well beyond anything I could do. But yes, I have in sessions said like, ooh, it looks like your spleen is a little heavy. And then, they'll go to the doctor and being like, my blood work didn't come up back all that great.
Mm,
So it can lead to, you know, obviously energetic blockages will at
mm,
some point either fix themselves, which would be great, or cause a different type of issue.
yeah. Yeah. So so when you're reading people's energy, you can see like where a block is, and so and then and then it could lead to, or it probably is on the way to leading to some health problem that you can hopefully help people avoid if they continue with the process.
Right. The way I look at this work is that anything we're releasing, right, whether it's
Mm,
from like, you know, the liver or something to do with like the heart chakra, anything we're releasing is just allowing more energy to move through and hopefully preventing some things down the line, whether it's,
mm,
and we would never know, right? There's no way I'd ever know like, oh, this person came to me for anxiety and we saved them from, you know, really going into like full on panic mode. I don't know if that would be the case, but in my head, that's kind of how I go through sessions. Like, okay, we just released all that stuff. In the end, it could prevent something more serious from happening because we're moving out those blockages and just allowing energy to work the way it should, right? Like innately, we are perfect beings. It's just life and trauma and toxins all get in the way. So trying to bring ourselves back into that balance so that we can emotionally feel good, but physically also allow our bodies to move and the meridians to be open and things to work together, which they're designed to do.
I'm curious about one thing. I'm going to take a wild guess that men are harder to free up the energy than women.
So okay, so that's an interesting question. I would say about 90% of my clients are women,
Mm,
number one. But the men that do come to me, they're coming to me on their own free will, right?
mm,
So oftentimes they're coming to me already either being told like you need to go do this. There's a lot of like wives or like
mm.
moms of sons being like, you need to talk to Kristen.
Mm,
Um, and sometimes they will like talk to me like this on Zoom, and other times they'll be like, I give her permission, just have her work on me off the phone. So I'll look at a picture and talk to their subconscious and release whatever I'm releasing. And that works too.
mm,
But the ones that show up like this and, you know, do the work, they're usually pretty open about it, at least after the first, once they realize like I'm not some like weirdo, you know, like I'm pretty normal, grounded, and like easy to talk to. So once they realize that, they kind of like relax and open up a
mm,
little bit. There have been some men that have come to me really having like very, very little knowledge of anything that I'm doing and most definitely coming very skeptical.
mm,
But usually they'll walk away and be like, okay, I do feel a little bit lighter. They might not be
mm.
able to like pinpoint why, but
Yeah.
there's like a shift in their energy.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that in the blog I wrote. I mean, when because you gave me some exercises to do to kind of free up the heart center, and I really felt that. I mean, I really felt um, lighter here, and then it actually made me realize how dense I feel here most of the time. You
Yes,
know?
I do. I know moving energy off can like sometimes I'll say like, okay, you might feel like a weight that you might not even know was there
Yeah,
lift. And it's true.
exactly. That was it.
You
Yeah.
get used to just kind of like living in a certain way. And it can be intense, especially if you're not taking the time to kind of bring awareness to yourself, right? So one thing I talk about constantly in sessions is just checking in throughout the day, not waiting for like one time of the day or the night. Like once the kids get to bed, once I've done all my work, like that's a big time for people to sit down and wind down, right? Whether it's with a drink or Netflix or, you know, their phone, just flipping through their phone. But what I've noticed, if people take the time throughout the day to take deep breaths, check in
Mm,
on their body, relax their shoulders, relax their jaw, they don't need that like time to be like, oh my God, let me just sit down, because they've
mm,
done it throughout the day to kind of keep their nervous system in check. So that's how I try to live my life. I mean, I'll tell you, since October, it's been tough with my dad just
mm.
dying so
Yeah.
unexpected. But if I didn't have these tools, I'm not sure where I'd be, to be honest, because I can't imagine dealing with the trauma of that without any type of tools. I
Mm,
think I'd be on some pretty heavy duty meds.
mm. Um, And just I had one other. So what would you say is a good routine for people to? Is it good to like kind of habit stack it with like eating meals throughout the day? Like maybe before you eat, do a little, little this and this, and to
Yeah.
kind of
So,
just let the air out of the air pressure out of the
right.
valve.
Yeah. So just like anything to just kind of reset, right? So
Mm,
the thymus thump, if you're not triggered by that, is a quick grounding way,
mm,
right?
yeah.
This is another way just to bring energy down.
Mm,
Even putting one hand on your heart and one hand on your stomach brings
mm,
energy down. So anything
yeah.
that you can do to kind of like be like, oh, I have a physical body, like I'm actually
Mm,
in my physical body and I'm sitting down, I'm eating lunch, and just
mm,
even just starting by bringing awareness in and breathing. So my favorite
mm,
breath is to breathe in through my nose, expanding my belly, breathe out through my nose, contracting my belly, and doing that 6 times. And that for
mm,
me is like really quick way just to bring it down.
mm,
So the more you can do throughout the day, the better. And it's really at times where, so if people are nervous driving, right, I'll have them get in the car, put your hands on the steering wheel, and that's your cue. Take 6 breaths, do a thymus thump,
mm,
relax your body. And the more you can trick your nervous system into thinking that you're good, like no issues, the more your nervous system will get used to being on a calmer level, right? You can
mm,
tell by just the way people carry themselves throughout their
mm,
day that a lot of them are so used to being wound up
mm,
and settled and chaotic that it must take them hours to calm down, right? Like
mm,
to actually feel like they're settled. So if you do that throughout the day and you get used to just the awareness of it, of like, whoa, like I am completely unhinged here.
mm,
Breath, relax your physical body, whatever it is. I like to drop my shoulders and relax my jaw. That's a quick like
mm,
body of I'm safe.
mm,
And because our nervous system is constantly deciding, am I safe or am I not safe? It's your job really to prove to it that it's safe, right? Like
mm,
we're fine here, whether we're late for a meeting for 5 minutes, okay, like we're still safe. Your nervous system, there's no logic there, right? So going like this, walking, eating 5 minutes late, it's the same reaction as if you were running from like a
mm.
bear. So
Yeah.
really like trying to out would
Yeah.
be beneficial for all of us because as we were
Yeah.
talking, energy just flows. We're all connected by energy. So the more, if you think of that like lockdown part of the pandemic and how heavy everything was, we were all connected. So
Mm.
it's interesting to kind of pay attention to other people's energy too and be like, I'm not taking that shit. Like, no way. That's
Yeah.
that's not coming into my field. So
Mm.
being aware and breathing are my two like easy ways to get through the day without like losing your shit, basically.
Yeah. I think I mentioned you before. I was reading this book. Also, I'm listening to like 6 audiobooks right now, in case you're keeping track. But one is the Joe Dispenza
Oh yeah.
Supernatural, and he has a lot of energy healing stuff in there. There's quite an overlap. Well, I mean, even sounds like he's downright stolen some things from Donna Eden without crediting her, but she's not the type to go after people for a lawsuit.
No.
But it's interesting though because he's really trying to build the science into it wherever he can, and he talks about, like you said, the fact that we're so used to moving like this, and he really talks about how it's actually a physical addiction that we get to cortisol and other hormones that we have when we're in this fight or flight. And that was less like, oh, I really thought about it. It's like it's one thing to be kind of suffering with this, and then it's just a whole nother level to realize that you're actually addicted to it and you're trying to perpetuate it.
I know, but the easiest thing you can do is just breathe, right? And get
Yeah,
off auto. That's his other huge
yeah.
thing is get off autopilot. Like
Mm,
none of our days we're just like going through like being like, oh yeah, okay, now I'm driving here, now I'm doing this. Your brain is just staying stuck, right? So anything you can
mm,
do to flip the brain, be like, whoa, 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 like what's going on here? Your
mm,
brain's going to start to move, right? That energetic stagnancy that we get by being on autopilot is very detrimental to our health,
mm,
especially emotional, mental
mm,
health. So even if it's things like even teeny things throughout your day, like if you always go grab the same coffee cup, get a different one. If you always brush your teeth and then get dressed, flip it. You know, like anything that you can do, like if you go to the produce section first of the grocery store, go to the other side. If you all park in the same parking spot, go to a different way. And even those little teeny tiny things kind of shakes you out of it.
Takes up the habits. Yeah.
And obviously learning new things, like learning new skills, going new places, those are huge ways of getting kind of like back on track to kind of grow some new synapses in your brain.
Well, thank you so much for doing this today. I really this is so fascinating to me, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do it. And we'll include your website information so people can contact you if they're interested, and also the links to Donna Eden's routine in case people forget the tips.
I hope it's pretty impactful, I think.
Yeah.
And it's free. And breathing is free. And drinking water is also free. So drinking water, staying hydrated, keeping your electrolytes balanced, the little back to basic things we should be doing throughout the day can make huge differences. So thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you so much.